My
Yeah,
team
it's on. It
doesn't.
says it's off.
Okay.
All right, let's get started, guys. Say the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. All right, so we got everybody but Naomi tonight. We still have a quorum. That's good. The regular agenda, item 14 will be not talked about tonight. We're gonna wait till later to do that one. Otherwise, that's the only change I'm aware of. Anything else? Yep. Yep, so that's the only one, right? Anybody else got anything? Okay, then I'm gonna look for a motion to accept the regular agenda minus item 14. Okay. Sarah makes a
second.
motion, Stephanie does a second. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Through consent agenda. Any thing on there? Questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, Stephanie makes a motion for the consent agenda. Can I get a second?
Second.
Sarah does a second. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Okay, minutes from the last meeting. Any changes, mods, updates to that? Was someone look for a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the minutes of the February 21st, 2022 meeting as presented.
Okay, Stephanie makes the motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second, all right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Carries. Public comment. Anybody got anything you want to chit chat about tonight? Once, going twice. All right, we'll move on. Sheriff's update. Did you guys get the email today?
I
I did not.
did not.
Okay, I didn't look to see where that came from, so. Try and find that real quick. It might be in the folder, I don't know. But-
In the Teams folder?
Yep.
Oh,
I was gonna say, should we wait until?
We just gave it. So.
Why don't we do that? Let's just wait. till-
Yeah.
You guys wanna just read it then, because that's good information there.
Well, we just got it.
I do too. That's what I'm thinking. And there might be some questions that we want to ask these guys just because of the new format and the breakdown. And it's pretty cool the way they did that. So let's do that. Then we'll just postpone that one until next time around. So, John, the final audit.
For me,
Here we go. Yep, go ahead.
don't know if my little slide deck to make its way up there. You have, so that's the full financials. Do you have the executive summary? Don't. It said this, we have. I think everyone should have printed out versions of it, but sometimes it's nice to throw it on the screen.
Yep, just follow along.
Leave it up to you guys if you guys want me to keep going or just. You're just the sharp one. Yeah, it's a PDF. Yeah. It's kind of powerful. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, John, there was a time when we had to do this every other year and it was no big deal.
Yeah. I'm no more.
Nope,
Yeah.
big deal. No.
I like to think we're
I just know there's a lot more to go. That's
Someone,
something
somewhere. tells us that.
Yeah. we had to go to annual reporting just because there's too much stuff going on all the time.
Well, with your guys' growth, city's growth, it makes quite a bit of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, well, as you can see, that is our slide deck for the night. Again, my name is John Hagan. I've been with Daily for a little over 7 years now. I work about 100% capacity of the government world, so cities, school districts, some county work, etc. Tonight we'll be going over the executive summary, which is really just a condensed, summarized version of the financials. Those financials get bigger and bigger every year, more requirements. They're up to over 50 pages now. So in an attempt not to put you guys to sleep, we kind of throw this together with some comparative information, previous years for reference purposes. But hopefully it's been through this for about 10-15 minutes, and let you guys get on to other things on the agenda. So
We appreciate that. Let me tell you.
which part? do you-
Now, just we won't fall asleep, you know.
Sure, yeah. Well, if you guys do start nodding off, I'll install it. So, with that, I'll talk right in and get into the audit results. That's kind of the end goal of every single audit, is issuing an audit opinion. So, what does that mean? Well, management is responsible for 3 things: that the financials are prepared in accordance with GAAP, that they are free of material misstatements, and that they are presented fairly. So we as auditors, we come on site, and we go through a series of procedures and tests to go over the balances and make sure that everything accounted for appropriately. And then at the end, very end, we do issue an audit opinion. This year's audit opinion was unmodified, which in layman terms just means a clean audit opinion, a clean bill of health, if that's what you're doing. With that, this is a little bit new to the city. We do have a separate audit over specifically the federal funds. So this is a requirement referred to as a single audit anytime an entity expends over $750,000. I think that's kind of the magic threshold. If they're ever over that dollar amount, there is a separate set of procedures called the single audit that focuses on compliance on rules and regulations with specifically those federal dollars. The city did cross over that threshold in 2021 and expended about $906,000 in total federal awards. Now, all of that federal awards came through the Clean Water Program, which is your SRF debt taken out for 2 projects. Those projects were the Horace proper water system replacement and the connection to Casserole Water, just kind of for reference purposes. So we do a separate set of procedures over these federal funds, and we do issue an opinion on those. And the city did receive an unmodified opinion on these federal awards as well. Our audit opinions, we do formalize certain findings that we come across. First section here, I'm going to break it out into those same 2 sections. First one being the financial statements. First finding is your preparation of financial statements, which include the SEPA, that is a schedule of federal awards. We at iDaily, we do prepare your guys' financials. So because we do that, we're going to have this finding every single year, similar to previous years, and something that I would anticipate happening going forward as well. It's kind of that independence issue where we have to issue that. The second one is material journal entries. So as part of the audit, we come out and making sure that the balances are presented in accordance with GAAP and looking through in the financials for presentation purposes. We do propose a number of journal entries. And then number 3, segregation of duties. So city, your guys' size doesn't have as many eyeballs and hands on everything in the city. Doesn't mean that you guys are doing anything wrong with the amount of people that you have, but you're just not big enough to have enough hands on everything. Very common for cities of your guys' size. Item number 4 would be tailored, kind of similar to number 2, where we propose a handful of journal entries, mainly due to some of those not being reconciled. I know this year was 2021 dating back was a bit unique. Some turnover in the finance department where that probably played a significant role as well. But we tried to help clean up some of the areas that we could. Second area is your federal awards. So I've kind of mentioned, talked through that already. It's a specific finding over these. I spoke over the procurement suspension department compliance area, which just means that you guys do not have a formal federal procurement policy. Talking with Brent, something that the city can get cleaned up and implemented here going forward. With that, we'll get into some of the numbers. Here, I'll kind of speed through some of these slides, but if anyone has any questions or anything, just let me know. First one is the cash and investment balances for the year ended, and we also have the data back for 5 years just for comparative purposes. This is for the entire city, with the exception of the capital projects fund. We do not include that by design on this slide, just because timing of bond proceeds coming in, as well as all the projects ongoing, can fluctuate year to year. So just for trying to get as much apples to apples as we can, here's your cash investments for the rest of the city funds. Moving into the general fund, which is the main operating fund of the city. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but wanted to have the information in front of you guys as far as where the final budgeted numbers came in to actual. Overall, you can see revenues were almost spot on, and expenditures coming in a little bit over budget. And then I'll kind of shift down to the very bottom there. Your total change in fund balance increasing about 360,000, bringing your ending general fund balance to about 1.5 million, at the very bottom number there. So if you can kind of remember that 1.5 million, we'll kind of focus in on that here over the next handful of slides. So what does a positive fund balance do for the city? Just a number of things. First, it contributes to favorable bond ratings. So you guys are always going out for bond for new projects and stuff. So having an increased fund balance and a positive fund balance can help attribute to more favorable interest rates on your guys' bonds. Secondly, produces investment income. So having your money for you in the bank through interest and other investment income. And third, most importantly, offering a cushion for unexpected shortfalls. So less money coming in or additional expenditures in the future, just kind of having that savings account, if you will, that fund to lean back on. Next slide kind of breaks out the different fund balance categories. Most of these don't actually apply to the general fund, so I'm going to briefly go over them. But first column, your non-spent money that's already been spent. The next one is restricted, so this would be restricted by outside parties. Debt service would be an example of this. That money is all restricted for debt payments. The next two I'll lump together, you're committed and assigned. This is council approval of how we want to designate and use the earmark funds. And then the last column is kind of everything else, your rainy day fund, ultimately your reserves and kind of unencumbered money in the city. So for the general fund for the last 5 years, this is your total ending fund balance. This is the $1.5 million that I mentioned previously. This would have a breakout of the different categories, but for you guys at the end of the year, it all falls into that last unassigned category, kind of unencumbered, completely have up to your guys' discretion. Overall, you can see pretty good growth there. Parlays pretty well with the growth in the city. So where should you be? This is kind of the $1 million question. There's no right or wrong answer. There's no golden rule or anything like that. There's a few benchmarks out there, one of which is GFOA suggests that governmental entities should have about 16.6% sitting of total general fund expenditures sitting in that fund balance. So if you go to the next slide. This relates directly to that. So at the end of 2021, that 1.5 million represents about 75% of your annual expenditures. Another way to look at this would be that the city could operate as is with no revenue coming in for about 9 months, so 75% of the year. And then this slide also has compared it over the last 5 years.
Just out of curiosity.
Yep.
See a very large difference here in 2017, and then we work our way back up. Can you give me just a nutshell of why 2017 looks like this?
So off the top of my head, I do not know where 17 came from. That was also before we kind of got our hands into the city. So it's presented for comparative purposes since we have the information from previous, but as far as the actual activity dating back to 17, I'm not sure.
I was just curious.
Yeah, no, fair question. Matt and Brett can maybe dig into that a little bit, and I can just get back to you on maybe what happened back in 17, but that was before I really kind of came out as well.
correct? Yeah.
I believe, just from what I can tell off this and going back 2017. The general fund budget was quite a bit smaller. And not all the areas that we should reflect were reflected in our budget at that time, so that's, I think, where we look different.
Well, I know we've
And
done great things to
2018.
break things out more in the last couple of years, and we're continuing to improve on that. And so I'm just curious if maybe that is more of a consolidation.
If you look back, 2017 budget was drastically smaller because it wasn't reflecting all the different things that was going on
Right,
with
A lot.
the city's finances.
Yeah, a lot more of the activity may have been involved in the general fund, where now, as you guys are growing, there might be different activity, you know, your debt service, your capital projects. You guys do have a couple of different smaller special reserve funds, so some of that activity may have been being reported within the general fund. Can't speak, but that is very good possibility.
good, great, thank you.
So I kind of covered the spiel on the general fund, but before I go, I do want to focus in on some business type funds of the city, so kind of your enterprise, or utility fund, if you will. First one being your water fund. So this slide does show the operating revenues, expenditures, and then your bottom line, your operating income. So this is truly from the operations. There are some other kind of non-operating revenue or expenses that play into the overall net income of those funds. For operational purposes, it's usually kind of the best snapshot to see if these funds are kind of making money and your rates are set appropriately. So as you can see, revenues do come in over expenditures, giving yourself a total positive operating income of about 44,000 in 2021. Again, this is for the water. Similarly, the sewer fund, I think pretty much the exact same situation. Where operating revenues were higher than operating expenses, coming with an operating income for the year of about 172,000. Last but not least, didn't want to be left out, the garbage fund, same exact thing, operating revenues over expenditures, with your ultimate operating income for the year of about 33,000. So all three funds operating at a positive, was ultimately what you want. City's not in it to make a ton of money, but you do want those rates set appropriately, to kind of account for all the expenses. Next slide is kind of a summary of your year-end net position. This differs a little bit from the fund balance consideration of the general fund, being that these funds do include your long-term assets, where the general fund does not. So these really do operate as a true kind of business fund. So these are your ending net position, your comparative to fund balance, but it does include those long-term assets. That's why you see significantly higher dollar amounts. The green bar is your highest with sewer, blue being water, and then there is a small sliver there. It's hard to kind of see because of the offsetting in those other funds, but there's a small sliver there that is positive for the garbage fund. And these are going to keep growing. You're seeing higher and higher bars, if you will, because of all of the assets being added to the city. So anytime a project is completed and the water and sewer portions of that infrastructure build out gets attributed and brought into these funds, that's why you're seeing the heavy growth in those assets, which ultimately increase your guys' net position in those funds. Garbage seems like it's lacking, but they don't get a chunk of that pie from the infrastructure. So that's pretty much just charging out your guys' customers and then paying for those purchases for the garbage fund. So that one's always going to be a pretty small sliver, where the other funds are going to continue to see growth. With that, that just kind of wrap things up for me. Before I go, I do want to kind of open it up to any questions. I know I kind of sped through that, there's a lot of information there, but does anybody have anything on top of their head right now?
I like the 5-year comparison, kind of give us an idea where we're tracking, you know, just because that's something we always want to know for make sure we're going in the right direction with things.
Yeah.
Looks like we are, so.
It very much is nice to see trend lines. You know, we always compile that. We go all the way back to 10 years. So as we continue doing the audit, we'll keep adding columns onto that to see longer periods.
Yeah. But that helps us forecast events too.
Absolutely. Okay, well, if there's any other questions that do pop up, just relay those through Brent or Matt. Before I go tonight, I do want to say thank you, Brent, and also Matt at the tail end. I know you kind of got thrown into the fire starting to kind of wrap up and over their audit. So we appreciate his help getting things squared away. And now we can officially turn the page and then focus into 2022 audit. I know everyone's calendar year 2023. Kind of just the world of audit, so. Okay, well, thank you guys for having me. Let me know if anything else does pop up. Have fun with the rest of the agenda.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so move along to number 9. Lucas, you have this one.
Yes, so I'll try to make this brief, Mr. Mayor. We have Colliers on the phone, Mike Massman and Todd Mundy, I believe are present over there.
Yep.
What we have before you tonight is the parameters resolution. The longer name for it is the resolution authorizing the issuance of improvement warrants and exchanging them for refunding improvement bonds, series 2023A. Essentially what we're doing is taking the 10 bonds that we had for 2021A and B and turning them into permanent bonds to fund those projects. Those projects are Water, Sewer, Storm, and Street Improvement District 2021-1, which is Southville Farms 3rd Edition. Water, Sewer, Storm, and Street Improvement District number 2021-2, which is Terra Gardens 3rd Edition. Water, Sewer, Storm, and Street Improvement District number 2021-3, Lakeview Edition. And Water, Sewer, Storm, and Street Improvement District number 2021-5, Arrowwood 3rd Edition. So what this parameters resolution does is exactly that, it sets parameters when we try to sell, or when the city tries to sell the bond, that will not exceed a certain dollar amount. So for all of these projects, that dollar amount being $21 million for the refunding bonds or the permanent bonds. And then the interest rate not to exceed 5.85%. Obviously, that's changed since what we did last year, but still not terrible. And again, that is saying that it's not going to exceed that amount, so 5.85%. And then we're also establishing the pricing committee, which again is the mayor and Brent, just authorizing them to proceed with selling these bonds. When Colliers gets the final numbers for these, they'll confer with Brent and the mayor to make sure that the city's good with the numbers, and have them sign off on that sale. So again, to recap, parameters resolution sets the dollar amount not to exceed 21 million, sets the interest rate not to exceed 5.85%, and then sets that pricing committee as the mayor and Brent.
Okay.
Any questions on the resolution or the project included in this or the process? Once the city has the funds on hand for this, we'll levy assessments for these projects. And so that'll get done this summer.
I'm seeing April.
Like let's go 8 months.
Thank you.
Typically takes about a month out.
Mike, what are you thinking is gonna be an interest rate that's achievable? I know 5.85 is high, but you think we'll be able
Let's-
to get?
I give, Mayor Peterson, I give you a little perspective. In December, when we did the 2022B temporary bond, we used a 6.5 as a not to exceed, Nick. And we came in at a 4.61. Today, we're using a 5.85 as a not to exceed number. We anticipate right now, today, we'd be about we think we're 100 basis points over with the not to exceed. So we should be under 5. And we're targeting 4.85. You know, where we go, the Fed is talking about continuing to raise interest rates. And recently that hasn't helped, but we're confident we're in that range. 5.85 is, of course, about 100 basis points high right now. We hope to price this sometime next week. We should be in the market on the 13th and settling this up somewhere between the 13th and 16th of this month. So, you know, the 5.85 just gives us room. 21 million includes any premium bid we might receive. We're closer to the 19.3 actually, for all your costs with cost of issuance involved. So those are just parameters, numbers, as you understand. And the pricing committee, which is of course Brent and Mayor Peterson, will be presented with the results, and that's the final determination if we go forward with the interest rate we're managed to obtain. As Mayor Peterson mentioned at the last meeting, we probably don't want to go back 2 years with interest rates, but in today's market, that's where we're at.
Yep. No, appreciate that.
Sure.
Anybody got any questions?
I do.
This one?
So this is placing the temporary bonds, is that what this is? Are we far enough along in Airwood Third to do that?
We have a projected final, but project isn't complete until August.
Okay.
We can have.
Yeah, that 10 bond, I believe we're at 40.
Those are all the questions I had.
Anybody got anything
I don't have a direct question, but maybe a related question after we're done with the, are we making a motion or just? Tonight?
Unless there's other questions.
Motion is on the approval of the parameters resolution.
Yep.
That's perfect.
Yeah, and my question won't directly relate to that, so.
Okay, so then I'm gonna look for a motion to accept the parameters resolution as is.
That motion.
Okay, Sarah makes a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
Jeff does a second. Right, all in favor, say aye.
I,
Okay, that's everybody. So motion carries. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate that.
Thanks for the opportunity. We'll be back.
Sounds good, man. Thank you. See you later, John. Unless you guys want to hang loose, that's up to you.
Thanks,
Jason,
Mike.
you
will.
got-
We'll find something to do here.
Yeah, figured as much. We'll see you guys. Jason, you got the next one.
I have a related question,
Okay.
or would you like me to wait till later, or?
If it's later, go ahead.
It will kind of relate to this. I guess my question is, I remember we talked about the declaration of official intent that we talked about back in January, I think were some other bonds. And I understand that process. Tonight, it looked like it was 21 million for these, and then I think back in January, it was, I think we listed 2021 -4, 2022 -2, and then 2022 -5 through 12 for the 92 million. I guess my only question is, oh, and then I noted in the audit, it looked like we had special assessment refunding bonds and temporary refunding bonds as of December 31st of 78 million. So I guess my question is, do we have a list, or I think it would be helpful to have a list of all of our currently bonded debt? And then maybe the list also to include the current projects that we have approved that are estimated. Just, it's hard to keep track of them, I guess,
Yeah,
is my comment. I think it would be good so we can remain cognizant of what dollar amount and debt limits we have.
So just to touch on some of that, those declarations of official intent were for various projects that were in the temp bond phase, some are in this now permanent bond phase.
Okay.
So to just include all those, you're not gonna see that number in the numbers that we saw tonight, because those are several projects that were just in different phases that, was kind of like a cleanup thing, going through the file to make sure that we had those resolutions in the file.
Okay,
But yes, we keep a list in our office. Jim and I actually have it. We can keep track of where we're at with our resolutions and stuff. And so we can include estimated prices in that list
okay.
and give it to the council.
Yeah, I guess I'd just like to see it, so we kind of have a running total. It's hard to keep track too with I know that's how we number our districts, but it's hard to keep track
Well,
of
that's why
the,
I said what developments they were considered. It's hard.
yep, I agree, and thank you for that, Lucas. Thank you.
Can I jump in for a sec? Colliers has prepared, as part of our continuing disclosure work, we do a debt book for you. So we have an updated book. I think Brent has it, but I can email it in the morning as well, which shows all of your outstanding bond issues on a yearly basis. As you pay down principal, we revise the numbers. So you would always know exactly what you have outstanding in bonds. I don't have the projection numbers for upcoming issues, but for issues you have placed in the market, we have a book for that.
Thank you.
You bet, you bet.
Okay, anything else?
That was my only question. Thank you, Lucas.
All right, Jason, you got the next one.
So Mayor and Council, tonight for item number 10, I know this was tabled at the last meeting and I apologize I wasn't here. I was back here trucking down I-29, but the street name change that was in front of you, we've kind of taken a look deeper into that. Brent and myself, we met with the owner of Prairie Scales the other day to kind of start to hash out an idea of what I guess would be an amicable solution for helping any kind of mitigation of impacts in terms of the rebranding or anything they have to do in terms of an address. So with the initial request that came in, which you can remember was that north-south of Industrial Drive, if that were to change to a different name, it would leave an additional island of the 650. So when this comes back to you, you'll see an amendment to my staff memo that is actually going to request that that part actually be withdrawn or vacated, which then in turn would turn those two properties to be addressed off 100, similar to what we have with Vista's third edition. For the rest of them there. I have sent letters to both of those property owners informing them that that will be something that is coming up. I have not heard anything in there. I wanted them to reach out to me if they had any concerns or no concerns, following up with them. Ideally, this will be back in front of you at your next meeting, but I'd like to have kind of an idea of a solution in terms of to lessen the blow of changing all their advertising and everything like that. And then a more formal kind of layout of this is what we'd like the street names to be, so you guys can make a better decision on that resolution, the street name change. And we'll also have that street name resolution also updated with all the information as well. So no action tonight, just wanted to give you an update where we're at with that. We're still kind of in the works of talking with those owners, just so they can get on board and have an idea of why we're requesting the change.
Was the meeting positive?
It was. They understood definitely why we were gonna go for it or why we wanted to go for it, especially from an emergency services standpoint. And then also just kind of understanding the history of why or how it ended up that way. It was an overall positive. They're gonna actually send us a list of what their advertising costs are for like their letterhead signage and things like that, so we can actually have a tangible idea of what that might impact them financially. And then we'd be able to kind of make a recommendation from that. As if the city's willing to help offset some of that cost or anything like that. I don't know, Brendan, if you have anything else to add?
We also asked them if they had a preference on the street name.
Good.
Because they're the only property addressed off of that. We figured that it would be good that they would be able to have input in for changing the street name. So we asked them if they had any ideas of street name. Here up one, just saying Grayscale Drive or Avenue, however, we have Curry Avenue already. So we said, no, that wouldn't be very good because it would lead to some of these problems they're already having. But we asked them to think of some other ones and we discuss them and see what we can. So at least give them an opportunity to throw up a suggestion or two. They bring that up. Jay said it was a very good conversation.
Good.
Any other questions on that?
Thank you.
All right. Go on to the next one, number 11. Jace, you got that one.
On your desk, in the packet, there's a memo from me as well as the updated plat and the existing plat. I just decided to kind of break down the zoom in level of what the changes are. And I'll pull that up on here real quick. Kind of go through them. So this is very similar to what we experienced with Cub Creek second edition, but after the fact, when they were going through their civil plans, there were some adjustments to some of the easements, and kind of the adjustments to lot boundaries, to accommodate the infrastructure. So I'll kind of walk you through the changes here quick, and then just before we get into that, I did bring this to the Planning and Zoning Commission on the 28th. They did forward a recommendation of approval, a unanimous recommendation of approval of these modifications. We do have that in hand, so this will be it for changes that we're going to allow because we'll be getting signatures after that. And just so you know, in the future, we do hope to curb some of these corrections by requiring the plat before it even comes to city council. Because we do only have a one plat process. And so we don't really have that. This is kind of because of pretty second looking at here, but I'll go through these quick. So page 1 of the plat. The top piece is a small HOA lot that was meant to accommodate the sign. In their proposed changes, they had adjusted the size of it. More for infrastructure purposes, and they added a fence easement as well. Page 2, we had an adjustment to a stub street that was 78th Street. Well, there's a street over on the west side that would also be 78th, so this was adjusted to 77th. just to continue, so we don't have an error in street naming. Page 2 again continued, so you'll notice on the existing one, there was a bunch of, we call them mouse ears within the right of way. They reduced the mouse ears. They widened a couple of HOA lots, to put infrastructure in place, and then added an HOA lot, actually shift over, the shared use path onto that, I guess, right side of the road. And that's kind of the major, apart from that, there was a bunch of easement changes and stuff that came out throughout the plat as well. But other than that, there was no major, I guess, density shifts. Actually, we lost density, we lost a few lots. So the single family buildable lot count actually came down with these amendments.
It went from. Use path. I was curious, the large red circle. Said that that's gonna be used for structure. Can you elaborate? If that has been determined at this point in time, or if that's for future use?
So I don't, Jim, you guys approved at this point?
You haven't, okay.
No, so nothing's been approved at this point, but this was their plan to widen that HOA lot. To, I guess, I don't know, support infrastructure or what the necessary reason was for that. The civils have not been approved yet, but this is some things assuming they would like to see it done in order to continue to that final plan phase.
Okay.
So they know where the infrastructure is going.
The other note I made was on the second red circle on the same drawing, lower left. How it went from a very basic triangle to a very elongated triangle. Is that again a structure change or sort of a landscape?
There would be a landscape associated with that, according to them. I would assume they would try to utilize it for infrastructure as well, but.
Because that's really an unusable lot.
Right, there's nothing that would be able to be built there apart from putting things underground and building up that corner. That's their initial plan, was to widen that for landscaping.
All right, that's what I wanted to know. That's the only questions I had. Thank you.
You do see a couple lots like that.
I do.
For example.
Yeah, and I noticed they've done some nice landscaping there, which is where the question led to. Are we doing something there, or is there, are we gonna actually try to do a park and something like that? Because if it's gonna be a park, I'm gonna say no.
Correct, and that's not listed as a dedication for park or anything, so that will be privately held within the HOA of that.
Good, thank you.
I just have one question and, it's just more of a general question. I noticed that it's a private drive. So when private drives are included in developments, I'm just curious what the decisions behind in doing so and what if any impacts are to the city, positive or negative when we do private drives, or what's the difference?
So the private drives, there's two of them in this development, both were approved with the original approval of this plat. Positive, I guess, of a private drive, it's not on your bankroll to maintain, it is maintained through the HOA. I haven't been here through the development of private roads, so in terms of, whether it's still improved to a city standard, Jim, I don't know if we can fill the gaps of that.
Has to be.
And so the city kind of the standard where it has to be built to the city standard. So is there a negative? Not in my mind. Because you're not accounting for it, it's still built to a city standard, so that way if the event they don't maintain it, it does turn over to a city, we're not left with the subpar road.
We don't have cost to them.
And we don't have clubs, so you don't have to go through all of those. The reason I'm understanding they did that was kind of trying to divert traffic through memory lane and create its own kind of rural style feeling within that development as well. But there's, I guess, more positives to private roads, except, it's not a private road, it's not a public street that people can access through, and internet connectivity is not necessarily available in those situations.
Okay, I was just curious why developers would choose.
He wants to put up private street signs.
Oh, you mean like a privately named road?
Or
Or,
is there private street?
oh, to actually say, I see what you're saying. Okay, I saw that in, Dr. Brent at some road and I just was curious what the decisions were and behind it.
We
Okay,
have a few private roads in the city. Well, their newest ones are, for example, bought by Dairy Queen. Park.
oh yeah, that's what it
Area.
was. Yeah,
Those are, that commercial areas, private roads.
Okay.
Side of that.
Okay.
And it, like I mentioned, is Case mentioned, maintenance costs are not on us, they're on the developer. We don't have to all snow, things like that, so there's a time and place where when you start getting bigger than like this in a residential area, then it could get a little more complicated, but it just depends on the development.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I do have one question here. I'm just trying to find, lot 11 on the handout versus what's in the actual packet online.
Lot 11, block 8.
See if let me see what block I'm on here, but I believe so. It's the upper
Yeah.
northeast corner. Can
In
you just explain that guy to me?
that handout, it's this lot right here. It's cut off, but it kind of goes up there. So this is a lot that is actually currently owned by the city. There's the long background, but I don't know if you want to go into the history of
Nope,
that lot, but we came into it under certain circumstances.
Understood.
And this is the one actually when we brought this originally forward, I had mentioned that the park district was interested in that lot to continue to shared use path, and we actually have a motion from the council that that lot would end up going to the park district to do.
Is it still, that was my
Correct,
question.
that will be part of.
Understood.
This, that become ownership of the park district to continue a pathway system.
All right,
Basically, we're making lemonade with fun.
understood. I saw it listed on there and I'm like, whose is that? So I just want to make sure that still is ours.
Correct.
Okay, just checking. That was it.
Okay, anything else? Otherwise, I'm looking for a motion to accept the plat lots. Sarah makes a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
Jeff to the second. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Hi.
Okay, that's everybody's motion carries. Who's got the next one? Brett, you.
You wanna start it? or- Yeah.
Right.
Mayor, members of council, you have a memo from me, a packet about enterprise debt forgiveness, this release record of one audit. This predates me, this is from 2 finance records ago. There's some stability in the finance department going forward, future years. Prior to 2019, the enterprise funds, so the water, sewer, and garbage, were combined into one singular fund. In 2019, it was budgeted to have them separated out so we can kind of watch the performance, make sure those utility rates are set to the point where each of them can be independently sustainable. And in doing that, Brent, correct me if I'm wrong, there were some inter-fund lending in each fund positive. I Bailey marked out 2 transfers that should be made fiscal year 21. Satisfy those debts. Those amounts are $175,900 due to the water fund to the general fund. And then $855,808 due from the sewer fund. What we're looking for is a motion of over denial from the council to waive those debts. It wouldn't change holistically the positioning of the financials for the city. It would impact the individual fund themselves. So the water fund would be fine. The sewer fund, that can take the sewer fund balance and the sewer reserves, have about less than half of what you would. So we would be spending the next few years building up that back to where. Frank, is there anything to add on?
I hate to call it like an imaginary debt, but when this was done, when all the utilities were intertwined in this one fund, they broke it out, they had to assign the debt, and it's basically like an imaginary debt from sewer to water. They had, and they put it at the time, towards sewer, because sewer looked the most optimistic to be able to recover quicker than water. This water we had, our water rate was incredibly low. We were not covering our costs on that. And that's what we were finding when we had broken out the funds. Typically. So like Matt said, it's not changing our overall financial position to the city. It's just, let's do a clean slate now that we have these funds worked through to where our costs are. You know, as John Hagan showed earlier today, our funds are positive for each of the utilities now.
So ideally, maybe this recommendation when?
This was, I believe this was actually from auditors before ideally. This wasn't, I don't believe this was ideally, Corey, do you remember? I believe it was.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember now too.
Okay. So long story short, general fund was used to stabilize sewer and water fund debt, basically borrowed from. And it was never given back to.
Right.
So those monies stayed in those general accounts. And if we were to make that correction back, it would be a shortfall one of the funds.
Shortfall sewer, water would be fine, but water reserves, water fund is very, very healthy. Sewer, but just got back on track here.
Right, and we're aware of that, and we know what happened there. So does that mean then that we're going against a requirement for the audit in order to do this, or can we simply make this adjustment and realize that this predates kind of everyone, and it was, at the time, everything was interspersed, combined?
That was a question we had for John.
Right,
This was proposed to us, or to me, the first time I heard about it was about a month ago.
Yeah.
I believe it was the February. Brent and I discussed, we went back to John and asked, is this a requirement? Are you requiring it to happen? Or can council forgive it when the stroke happens?
is there a penalty?
There is no penalty.
Okay.
There's no penalty. We would just need, if you were to approve this, we just need that minutes so they can mark it off as.
Completely.
Correct.
So this is is this noted as a deficiency then? At
No.
this time, it's not.
It's not an emergency.
To clean up.
It's just a cleanup item.
So, cleanup item. Doesn't impact positive, negative, the city. And really what we're looking to do. Not have the sewer fund.
It can hurt the sewer fund in the future if you kept that debt
Right.
there. Because if we're trying to get funding for, like, say, SRF or.
Yep. That's where I'm. Deficiency or substantial deficiency.
That's where it could hurt us,
Okay.
in my opinion. Because it'd be showing that we're in a negative position for the sewer fund.
Right.
And then what SRF, the state would probably say is, city, raising sewer rates.
Yep.
You get all that will occur.
Which is what it did with their water.
That's what I see them doing, and that's what Corey was just saying, that's what happened with this report. Back in 2018, the state that identifier said that we couldn't get SRF loans because we had these dollars all year enabled, and we were in the deficit and everything, we were in the red. And they said, until we got our audit cleaned up and we got our rates cleaned up, we're gonna be eligible for SRF loan funds. Clean that up within about a year, or roughly a year and a half, we cleaned that up, became eligible again, and then we were able to tackle our water projects. So my biggest concern is just if we keep that debt on the sewer fund and we start paying that back, it's just gonna make it more complicated, more difficult to be able to get funding for sewers. That's our funding. There's other means to get funding, but
SRF funding is kind of a high priority
Yeah.
moving into
And-
this year's next year.
And I can't promise that it would make it more difficult. I just do believe it probably.
Oh, we've seen it happen before.
Yeah.
The transfer consider, so,
I
yeah.
can see it work.
I'm just, we're gonna recommend that we wipe the slate clean. Move on.
Provided there's no penalty, there's no deficiency. or-
Nope. This is just kind of a,
Correction?
Yeah.
Okay.
like cleaning off the mirror that's got a smudge on it.
And it allows us to keep the cost as low as possible. for
Yep.
I think that's important. Good. Okay.
Jeff, Stephanie,
I have no problem.
questions?
I have no problem either.
Okay. Look for a motion to accept the God debt forgiveness.
Make that motion.
Jeff makes a motion. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Second, okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Motion carries. Next one, Brent, you got this one.
You gotta bring all kinds of unique situations to you.
Mm-hmm.
Just wanna keep you on your feet.
Thank you.
We'll show you what lots we're talking about first. So there's two lots owned by Horace Lutheran Church. The first one would be, I don't think you get the aerial, but it's hard to see the lines. First one is right there, just above the green. Cemetery, so that lot right on top there, that's part of that cemetery also. However, when you click on GIS and you identify where it is, it says Horace Lutheran Church. So if you close all of that and then go click on the next one, or the one to the south of it, click on that, and identifies it as the actual cemetery. A cemetery should not be getting special assessments. However, those two lots were not identified, or that lot and then another one were not identified as cemeteries within the county. So when we certified special assessments for the 76 and 17 roundabout and also the SSL, they were assessed. Now, if you go further north, the other cemetery is that one right there. It's same situation. There's obviously a lot of grave sites there. It's a cemetery being used as cemetery. But there were special assessment signs that, and that is not identified as a cemetery within the county also. So, we've been approached from some folks from Horace Lutheran Church asking us to waive the specials and refund the specials paid back. What I would recommend to council for your consideration, and I'll show you the numbers here in just a minute, is just you could waive the specials from now on. Type those, because it was not identified as a cemetery through the county or anybody. And these dollar amounts, we could absorb the special assessments on that through the sinking fund, through the fund for that district very easily. We're only talking, if you go to the next slide. Okay. Tell you the dollar amounts here.
So how does this happen? That it doesn't recognize it?
Because when they're
It's
looking,
like a flat, or how does it?
typically,
Just so
when
that
we're
we're searching for this. going
Yeah.
forward?
typically when we're certifying specials, you're looking at a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
After these both been certified, we started creating maps. So you're saying, started creating maps identifying each parcel with the dollar or the dollar amount on them.
Right.
So it's easier to catch.
Yeah.
But before that time, we didn't really do the maps, we didn't have that. So we were looking at spreadsheets, and when you're looking at the spreadsheets, you can see cemetery. And go, yep, we got that cemetery, or yep, we got that. Well, the other two lots, as you saw, they were identified just as Horace Lutheran Church, it wasn't identified as cemetery. So we're asking the church to do or the county to make sure that those lots are identified, say like Horace Lutheran Church Cemetery in the future. That way we don't run across this issue.
Paperwork thing that this town
Those
had
were the
done.
only two specials that were district boundaries that were citywide.
Yeah,
There's also a certain onus on property owners to tell the city, hey,
Yeah.
we shouldn't have a special on this, the cemetery.
Did-
and
That's kind of what I was wondering.
no, we did not receive protests from on that or identify, our knowledge identifying, hey, we shouldn't be assessed for that. It's came to us, obviously, a couple of years after that. And that's why we're just saying, can we waive, we can waive the specials from now moving forward, and the project funds or the districts can take on that cost. For the first slot, the smaller one, by the Brink Cemetery, the SSL was $602.83 left on it. 7617 roundabout was $404.50. So a total of $1,007.33. One up by South Hill Farms. The SSL is, main balance is $2,710.93. 7617 roundabout $1,051.69 for a total of $3,762.62. Those are costs per individual lot. You're talking cost per district. The SSL cost would be, so total impact on those districts, you'd be waiving $3,313.76. SSL, $1,456.19 for the rock. That district.
So what about with the St. John Cemetery being maybe annexed in the one side of the road?
There are no districts over there.
What's that?
There are no districts that have impacted that right now.
Okay, so
And also the St. John Cemetery, you go back to the map, we can double check, I believe. That actually has, the portion that is in the city limits has in their name cemetery. So what 140 is talking about is cemetery off of
76 going west, yep, about a mile.
west of 81st. So there. Yeah, as you see it.
Yeah.
Right
So on the south side of the road, click on that one there.
Yep.
That's in the city limits, and it says St. John's Cemetery Association. So if you click on the north side of the road, that is out of the city limits. But they have, oh no, that one's at the city. That's recent, that changed just recently. Because just about a month ago, it did, or less than a month ago, it did not say that on that one. It said, it's something else, it didn't say cemetery.
Rural something.
Yeah, so that actually just got updated recently, probably after these conversations. They updated that one.
Yeah, okay. I just,
North one,
I just wanted to double check that, cause I know it's part of the Lutheran
Yeah.
Church's deal too, so.
kind of an odd situation.
Yep.
Like I said, at the time when the Special Assessment Commission and staff and everybody were reviewing these different parcels, reviewed it via a spreadsheet. Then is that what you recall? From what I recall, we were done via a spreadsheet.
Yeah, there was over 1,900,
Yeah.
goals on that spreadsheet, I remember it vividly.
And then after that, yeah, he has flashbacks still. After that, then since then, we started doing, identifying the parcels with the dollar amounts reflected as labels on each parcel. And that has been a lot easier to identify if there's an issue, but
So if these special assessments per se are waived, who covers the difference?
the district.
So it would just go back into the.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
But this is kind of how it should have been in the first. I think we should just waive them but we'll also tell the church, they gotta go and get their paperwork updated with the county, so we don't.
which is obvious that you're able to update it because you're just witness.
Yeah.
It's updated, so.
Did they just recognize this now? I mean,
Just
wasn't,
recently, they approached us and asked us to do that, and we can't make that change at staff level, it has to be a council decision. And the county has indicated that they're willing to work with us, and Matt has been speaking with them too. They said they'd be really, they would work with us, they just have to have what it was decided by council.
There's a state statute that you can't, special assess cemetery area, just that it's not designated as a cemetery area, that's what.
Yeah.
Get that squared away. We waive the specials on this.
So yeah, we're going to help them make sure that they get this reflected.
And get their paperwork right too, so.
Did you check the cemetery on the County Road 14?
That one's taken off, it's a thinker.
Okay.
It's off the Smith Trust property.
Okay.
Questions, comments?
So you were talking earlier, Brenton, you want us to waive the specials going forward? Did they ask for anything else besides that?
They asked if we would fund them back what they've already paid. However, that gets a lot more complicated.
Understood.
So we're looking at this would, we could address it since at the time of when it's been brought to the attention.
have they paid a lot?
Pardon?
Have they paid? That's why I was wondering, like,
Have they paid?
oh, they didn't figure this out earlier. Had they paid a lot already?
It's, if you look at their, I had it pulled up here.
That's okay. I mean,
It was actually fair, their payments for these aren't very big. I mean, you relatively, I can see where they wouldn't catch it right away. With one of them, this SSL, $262 a year.
Okay,
And the other one's $96, and that's the one up by South Hill Farms. On, straight across the street, Horse Lutheran, that's even smaller, like probably half of that. So I can see where they may not even realize that and just thought it was part of property taxes or something like that, but.
Actually, I think what we got found out was when, the church acquired that property across the street on Brace there. Yeah, that's when it kind of came to light.
So they have another parcel that Corey's talking about, which is to the west of the cemetery that brings there. That was donated to them right there. So we're asking them if they're going to keep that as a use of a cemetery, then they get that cleaned up too. Because until it's reflected a cemetery, and there's no sites, there's sites or anything on there. If it's not designated a cemetery, then it's complicated for us to waive specials on something like that in the future, if there's a future district impacting that site.
That's where it got found out, and that's what we're
Yeah.
trying to clean up here.
Was that just recently donated to them?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
And they were trying to figure out what they would do with that, if they were going to keep it for a cemetery or what they would do, but the last I heard, it sounds like they were trying to keep it a cemetery, I don't know.
Yeah,
They made a final decision, but.
that's the last I heard, so. Okay, so what do you guys want to do? I'd say just for the non-complicated that we would just go with the waiving of specials going forward and that the church get their paperwork squared away with the county to reflect this.
I'll make that motion.
Can we stipulate? Correct it so this doesn't come back in the future.
That's what I was getting at, though. I mean, they gotta get their paperwork.
Make sure that that's clarified. Motion.
Was my motion sufficient to move in that nature, or should I repeat?
This one for the determination. Just
I mean,
stipulate that the paperwork would be correct.
And I guess I said so moved. So maybe I should reiterate the motion.
Please say your motion again.
Well, I just said so moved after Corey explained.
So
Correct.
what I said was that we would go along with the
Sorry.
waiver, go along with the waiver, as long as the church takes care of the paperwork with the county.
And I just asked that we stipulate that as a part of the motion, so that it's very clear. She said so, well, maybe I have
Yeah,
to just.
It sounds like it's in there, but.
Okay.
Brent, you got that?
We'll get.
Thank you.
You got your time.
Just make
Okay.
sure, because I don't want this coming back.
Yeah, this be read.
That's what I want. Thank you.
I'll make sure when I bring it back to the church, we'll get it squared away.
Thank you.
All right.
And I actually have a meeting tomorrow with the church, so I'll.
Okay.
I can bring it up to them, so.
Okay, so I got
Here
a,
twice.
I got a motion and I need a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, sir, there's a second. All right.
Thank you for the clarification.
All in favor, say aye.
Hi.
All right, motion carries. Proceed on to 15. Jim, what do you got?
All right, I got two things for you tonight. Last Monday, we went union contracting, when measured default. They have mobilized equipment out to the site and they want to start in the next. Last week, it was the next couple of weeks, and we got the condition snow, so they're gonna move that out of the way and then they're gonna get going, but they're hoping they're gonna. So and just get done. Like I said, they're trying to have another posted, they've got a project left out this long. They just want it done.
Excellent.
Groundhog?
He hasn't got that far yet. They've got an excavator out there. They've got I think they have a nice pick out there for the excavator. Yeah, he said we're just gonna rip through it if we have to. Just then blanket it and do what they have to do to get that time period. Ground for the days. So,
Okay.
he said, I don't like having this project lingering out there. So and I don't like it, so we want to get it done.
Okay.
That's good. And then on Wall Avenue, we staked a proposed right of way with lab, sent out tree policy to residents, let them know of where the proposed right of way was. Mike met with another one today. Lucas's office has got the purchase agreements for 4 of them, I think, drafted up. And we're having a meeting with the staff over here tomorrow, Wednesday to kind of, get our course of actions to have something back to you in the plan by next meeting.
Yeah, cool. Any questions for Jim?
Thank you.
Okay. All right, Brenton, what you got?
Yeah, I actually had a few things.
Hmm.
Kept it short. Other things. First one, waste management. We got some issues, obviously, with waste management, weather and all that. I am working with waste management to have them credit 1 week of the utility or the trash rate. And once we have that from them, we'll do that with our residents. We've had some residents asking for that, and I brought it up with the management at Waste Management today, saying, if we're gonna be doing this for a handful of properties, then it's been an issue across the city, we probably need to be doing this across the city. And being that we've had issues with garbage pickup for the last couple of weeks, a lot due to the weather, but also Waste Management has had some challenges too. We felt it'd be appropriate. They agreed with me on that one, so we're trying to work that through, and once we have that figured out, and know when it'll be reflected on utility bills and what, or give them a heads up. We're also going to be touching base about just clearly identifying criteria of when trash days will be canceled or moved due to weather. So like the other week here, we had a blizzard on Wednesday, or the snowstorm on Wednesday. However, that pushed our trash service back. We were informed of that until the very end of the day when I called them up, or after working hours, I called them up and said, what's going on? They said that's when they told us that our trash would be moved to the Friday. So we want to make sure that we have some criteria of when Waste Management is going to inform us, or when the shots are called, saying if it's going to be pushed back or not. Also, the week before, we had the snowstorm on Thursday, and Waste Management was still out picking trash up that Thursday. The snowstorm lasted in the morning and early afternoon, but they were out there in that nasty weather picking up. And maybe they shouldn't have been picking up. So that's why we want to be able to identify some criteria saying, okay, if it meets this, postpone the next day, and then we get blast out through social media, website, whatever, saying, hey, trash has been postponed. Because a lot of people don't want to put their trash cans out during a blizzard.
Do we have that kind of authority to tell them?
Yeah.
We do?
Found out we do.
Good to know.
And we'll start working through that with them, but I want to be able to identify parameters to where it isn't even much of a question. It's, does it check this box, this one, yes or no? If it checks the boxes, then yeah, we need to postpone it. It isn't as much of the city telling them, hey, you're going to delay it. It's we're working together to do that. So, but we'll be having a conversation about trash service. We have noticed that they have gotten better about repairing lids and cans. So that issue has been resolved, but then we're running across these issues too. They have indicated that they have interest in introducing another route day. Trying to figure out these other issues first. Going forward, that's what I'm pushing for. Other one, tree program that was out in Horace happenings. It's $50 for a tree, just reminding everybody it's $50 per tree for the first tree in the front. If there's a second tree or more in the front yard or at the boulevard, it's $250 for those additional trees in the front. But if it's an end lot, it's $50 for those. If you're on an end lot, then we over trees. These trees are not cheap, obviously. Decent sized tree, probably to half caliber and 3/4. That's what we're targeting. We have had about 20 applications so far from residents. We budgeted $10,000 in the forestry fund, and we have to do a bit more, or in the future, have a conversation with some money aside from like the sales tax or something like that, or a general fund or somewhere. And Oh, use that as more like a seed money for the street program. The reason behind it, we're going to have higher participation, I believe, first year or two. And that's going to drop because the tree program had two angles. One was for new loans, 2023 and on. And then the other one was houses built for 2023. But once those ones before 23 get their trees, then those lots drop off. So your number of eligible properties in place for this start to dwindle down. So it might be more of a, let's have a conversation about putting a little bit more seed money towards that program. The interest is there, which is great. We offered 4 different types of trees based on our boulevard tree ordinance. Maple, and we kept the categories generic, so if we could get our hands on one maple tree or another that's on our boulevard tree list, great. We have some flexibility. But we asked residents to prioritize 1 through 4 options. What type of tree they're interested in, maple, oak, the crab apple, and an elm. And so far, the majority of folks are saying maple with a few oak trees here and there. Another one we have is like, we're looking into a request from Horace Elementary for a school zone, on County Road 17 from Wall of Chestnut. That being a county road, and county has so really the ultimate say of it. But they've requested us to consider that and work with the county, so we'll be. That's county.
I said, if we're gonna leave, we got it. Okay, plus they give them the, we still that. Yeah. Just another time.
Did that come from Carol?
It did.
Did she ask for a stop sign or?
Well,
Signal.
Got it.
we've had, it was a mixture of requests, and one part of the request was for a traffic signal there at Ironwood 17.
It looked like Christmas with what they're suggesting. There was a signal at 17 and there was flashing beacons on front of the school, to the side of the school. Lots of flashing lights.
Is there something that could possibly be done as possible, but it would be conversations with the county and school district? Traffic signal, I'm fairly confident not being.
There's not even more, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but just out of curiosity, the beacon though is interesting. Does that?
No, we left that section off because there's more. Than just the middle.
I recall we went so far, I didn't know if we are,
Stop short because of that.
so we
And-
would have potentially an opportunity.
This actually probably store more to the rekindle conversation that we had about Ironwood in front of the school and Little Tykes to where Jim has worked up where that would be widening the road a bit, to have some parking along there.
Street parking.
And have a turn lane, so that way when you're going eastbound, you can turn left or right, in your actual turn lane, which I believe that.
Still leaving the entrance. Big spot.
The concept at the time was keep it off the Ironwood, but it would remove the east one, so only be one way in, one way out, separating it back from the intersection. There's just so much.
There's too much congestion at that
Yes.
intersection,
Yeah.
so if anything we can do to alleviate that would be awful.
Getting that frontage road out there was a big help last year.
Yeah.
And then getting that driveway, a real driveway access, and not just 2 spots that are pretty beaten up on the one.
Right.
So there's a lot going on in that 17 frontage road compared with 2 driveways.
So
And we have monitored that area, and I know Jim went out there with Naomi last year and checked to see how long it takes. I can tell you, start going through there. I pull in here around 7:50, 7:55. The longest it's taken me has been 3 minutes to get from when my kids got out of the truck. I get in 17, that's when it's backed up. I've been paying attention every time, and that's not statistically valid the study or anything, but it's just trying to pay attention, how long does it take to get there? That's a fairly short window, you're really looking around, what did you find, around 7:45 to 8?
It still wasn't working.
It was a pretty short window.
It was
worse.
It was probably quite short when you actually analyze it, but
Yeah,
what I think the best thing to do is once the snow melts. How people navigate through that area, and then we can get that data, see what they want, what's warranted, what's not warranted, what the tendencies are, what can be done to kind of clean up that area, but yeah, it was a rather lengthy email we sent out.
And I think a lot of it was due to West Fargo School District shutting down busing for half the city and forcing that many parents to take their kids in at that week was an absolute nightmare.
That,
So,
just this last week that they are eliminating more restaurants.
so my ask then from whomever on that side of the table is to ask them to use their school resource officer to direct traffic when they have busing shut down, because you're literally doubling or tripling the amount of cars trying to get through there. I mean, I showed up at, I'll say 7:45, and I didn't get out of there till 8:05, and I went through Ironwood and came out on the north side.
Moved the wrong way.
One of those guys.
They're dropping kids. The bus routes, people are making second any traffic loop inside the parking lot to the point where people are parking in handicap parking, handicap placards. These kids are then, short, little, about this big, and they're meandering through traffic, you cannot see them. And parents are getting blocked in parking spots to the point where if there was, God forbid, a medical emergency, like say a child was choking or something, it happens on a sucker or a good spot, you would have no way out. And we're talking for a long period. I was there for 20 minutes. And I think Steve response, 45 minutes when you've got a breathing emergency. So this is something we need to take very seriously.
And so that is my ask then, if they're gonna do that, which I can see them doing that in the future, shutting down bus routes and not just one, but half the city. Use your school resource officer or more to direct traffic, because it is kind of crazy.
She had provided some comments, that email, and she, copied it.
Okay.
They're aware of it. Maybe it's something where they can use bus route for people to pay.
Yeah, I saw traffic going out the bus loop as well, out to the east.
I haven't heard anything.
Oh,
It's kind of,
we have.
been on my mind.
We have
every
major
morning.
visibility problems there. I mean, they even attempted to push the snow piles at the corner and I can't see. You can't see to get out. I'm waiting for someone to get clipped. It's a matter of, it's not if, it's when, just so you know that. Right on 76 coming up. So if there's anything that we can do to assist, I don't know where the cutoff is between the schools and the city and that's no removal. We need to look at very closely and it needs to be addressed.
You got something you want to add to this, or?
On the elementary school, the expansion or the adding the classrooms has created some major traffic flows. It's a nightmare for us, a concern. And the morning is one concern, but the afternoon is more of a concern for us getting into there. Because our plan of attack is to enter on all three ways. Water hookup and everything is on the west side, the east side of that building. But our attack into the building is on the two main doors on the north and south. And we've tried just taking the command buggy going in there and suburban. And parents get all upset that we are driving through the loop and skipping the rule protocol of not being in line. And the people do block and will not open up to get into the north entrance where the school buses go in when they're in line. So that's a congestion issue.
So they're effectively blocking the buses in.
Well, they're just standing in line to make the turn to get into.
There's nowhere to go.
There's no place to go.
Gotcha.
Unless they actually get out of the way. So it's a whole combination. Forget whatever's happened on at Little Tikes. Once you get in that loop, there's no way we're gonna get engaged in there. And right down at certain times.
This might be a bigger conversation.
Yes.
It's been an ongoing conversation.
Yeah.
For quite a while.
And then the other one is the middle school. They've just, I have not seen it in the past, I'm gonna be honest with you, sir. For the past, I'm gonna say 3-4 weeks, I haven't gone to look at that mess. But I know that at the beginning of winter, it was a bit of a fiasco. The other thing I'm seeing is people are trying to leave there and do a quick UE type turn. So it's, as Sarah said, it's time before we have an accident there. But people are not respecting, or what they'll do is they'll start stacking 3 wide to drop off kids.
Right. And these kids are weaving through moving traffic.
Yes,
It's terrifying.
and we are gonna wolf a kid sooner or later.
Oh,
I hate to use that term, but probably wolf a kid.
Yeah, so I think this is another conversation we'll have to have another time. We gotta dig a little deeper on this one, so. What
I
else?
just want to give you a heads up, we got the requests.
thank you.
On a positive note, thinking of children, we have Easter egg hunt coming up April 1st. Yes, it's April Fool's Day, but no, it's not a trick. The plan is April 1st, they have Easter egg hunt. Working with Portsmouth Church, also meeting with them tomorrow. To try to button down the logistics type of this with them, or coordination with them. But our plan right now is still April 1st to have that Easter egg hunt. Get most of the Easter eggs ready to go. Well, in advance. Worked out pretty well with staff to do. Right now, that's all I have. Get more details once we done everything locked in church. And I hope as snow continues to melt. Grass area instead of snow.
That's true. Huge group about bringing fire engines over again. That was quite a bit.
I believe there's been some discussions, but. So
But thank you.
I have quite a few things to touch base with.
All right, on the portfolio, so. A couple weeks ago, I met with the HLC, kind of gave them a presentation on where we are with the city and what's going on, kind of gave them a couple of your ideas, where things are going. Kind of give them a heads up. I met with Berkshire Halfway here last Tuesday, gave them a presentation as a city, fielded a bunch of questions on that. We had our Moody's call here. Jason, was that last Thursday or Friday? Friday, I guess we had a Moody's call. That went well. They still like our story.
If anybody does wanna see that rating, leave it's, leave it's confidential or the. Summary thing from, but.
Right. There was a press release that was sent out on Friday afternoon that kind of just does a cursory overview or an executive summary, I suppose, probably be the best way to put it, but we do have a in-depth,
The ratings stay the same.
which is good. That's what we wanted. So that's all I got. Sarah, what do you got?
Just after the meeting, one at which base with both Lucas and Jim with status updates. That's all I have.
Stephanie, what do you got?
I don't have too much either. I was fortunate enough to go on a ride along with our hardworking Public Works during one of the 2 storms we had here. That was very interesting and eye-opening. Continue to work on 150th planning. And I also just wanted to take a moment to extend my well wishes and thank you to Sally Showalter, who has taken a different position and will be leaving us here in a few days. I've worked really closely with Sally through my events portfolio since I was elected to the position, and she's been a very important part of the planning in addition to her other duties. So I wish you well, Sally, in your next endeavor. Thank you.
Jeff, what do you got?
All right, so MetroCog is having a second round of interviews for the executive director position. They start this Friday and will be on Monday as well. They will be down at the actual conference room for MetroCog down on Second Street North. So I'll be spending, from what it looks like, significant time there on Monday and my afternoon on Friday. Other than that, obviously we'll have a position opening up, and I will extend my well wishes as well, to Sally. And, that's all I got. I will make a motion to adjourn.
All right. This motion, can I get a second?
I'll second.
Deputy, a second. All right, all in favor, say aye. We are adjourned.
Jeff, I gotta give you that transition in there.
I just blast right into it.